Park Dong-wook stared at the message on his screen. He read it 3 times, hoping the words would change. They didn't. The orders were clear. He had to marry an alien princess to stop a war. Dong-wook was 28 years old. He worked as a diplomat for the Human Colonial Federation. Before that, he had been a military engineer. He fixed broken ships and built new weapons. He liked working with his hands and solving problems. He never thought he would have to marry someone he had never met. The message came from Admiral Chen, the head of human space forces. The Valethian Empire was angry with humans. They thought humans had attacked their trade ships. Humans said they didn't do it, but the Valethians didn't believe them. Now, both sides were getting ready for war. "We need to stop this before it starts," the Admiral had said in his video message. "The Valethians have a tradition, political marriages to make peace. Their emperor has a daughter, Princess Velnara. You will marry her." Dong-wook stood up from his desk. He was on Harmony's Edge, a big space station where different alien races met to talk. Through his window, he could see Valethian ships. They looked like giant crystals floating in space, beautiful but dangerous. A knock came at his door. "Come in," he said. Kim Jae-min entered. Jae-min was Dong-wook's best friend. He studied alien biology. He knew more about different species than anyone else on the station. "I heard the news," Jae-min said. His face looked worried. "Are you okay?" Dong-wook sat down in his chair. "Do I have a choice?" "There's always a choice," Jae-min said. "But this one might save millions of lives." Dong-wook knew his friend was right. If humans and Valethians went to war, many people would die. Both sides had powerful weapons. Both sides were proud and stubborn. "What do you know about Valethians?" Dong-wook asked. Jae-min pulled out his tablet. "They're warriors, very strong. They have crystal-like skin that works like armor. Most of them can read minds a little bit. They live about twice as long as humans." "And the princess?" Jaemin's face got more worried. "That's the problem. I can't find much information about her. The Valethian files are locked. All I know is that she's the youngest daughter of Emperor Thainvor." Dong-wook felt cold. "Why would they choose me? I'm not important. I'm not even a good diplomat." "Maybe that's why," Jae-min said. "Your test scores show you're good at adapting. You don't give up when things get hard. You find solutions other people miss." Before Dong-wook could answer, another knock came at the door. This time it was Ambassador Lee Mi-young. She was the senior human diplomat on the station. Her job was to manage relations with alien governments. "Dong-wook," she said, "we need to talk." Mi-young sat down across from him. Her expression was serious. "I won't lie to you. This marriage is dangerous. 3 human Valethian marriages have been tried before. All 3 ended badly." "What happened?" Dong-wook asked. "The humans couldn't handle Valethian customs. Valethians are very different from us. They value strength and honor above everything else. They also have telepathic abilities that humans don't have. This creates problems." Jae-min leaned forward. "What kind of problems?" Mi-young looked uncomfortable. "Valethians can sense emotions and thoughts. When they marry, they expect complete honesty, complete openness. Humans aren't used to that. We like privacy. We keep secrets. Valethians see this as lying." Dong-wook felt his stomach drop. "So the other marriages failed because the humans couldn't be honest enough?" "That's part of it," Mi-young said. "There's also the wedding night ceremony. Valethians call it the truth revealing. Both people must show their true selves to each other. No hiding, no pretending. If either person holds back, the marriage is not valid." "What exactly does that mean?" Dong-wook asked. "We don't know," Mi-young admitted. "Valethians keep their most sacred ceremonies secret. But we know it's more than just physical. It's mental and emotional, too." Dong-wook stood up and walked to the window. The Valethian ships still floated there, waiting. Inside one of them was his future wife, a woman he had never met, a woman from a species he barely understood. "Why me?" he asked again. "There must be other diplomats who are better qualified." Mi-young shook her head. "The Valethians asked for you specifically. They said they studied human records and found you suitable. They liked your engineering background. They said you solve problems in creative ways." Dong-wook turned around. "When is the wedding?" 3 days, Mi-young said. on Valetha Prime, their home planet. The ceremony will be huge. Representatives from dozens of species will attend. The whole galaxy will be watching. After Mi Young left, Dongwook and Jaemin sat in silence. Finally, Jaemin spoke. "You don't have to do this," he said. Dongwook thought about his sister back on Earth. She had 2 young children. He thought about all the human colonies scattered across space. He thought about the Valethian families who would die if war started. "Yes, I do," he said. The next 3 days passed quickly. Dongwook spent time learning basic Valethian language and customs. He practiced eating their food, which tasted like metal and flowers. He learned how to bow properly to show respect, but, mostly, he worried. He worried about making mistakes. He worried about starting a war by accident. He worried about his future wife. What if she hated him? What if he couldn't understand her? What if the truth-revealing ceremony exposed something about him that made her angry? On the night before the wedding, Jaemin brought him a bottle of human whiskey. They sat in Dongwook's quarters and drank in silence. "I'm scared," Dongwook finally said. "Good," Jaemin replied. "Only stupid people aren't scared of important things." Dongwook smiled for the first time in days. "Thanks for that." "Just remember," Jaemin said, "you're human. That means you're stubborn and adaptable and too stupid to quit when things get impossible. Those are good qualities." The next morning, Dongwook put on his dress uniform. He looked at himself in the mirror. He looked like a soldier getting ready for battle. In a way, that's exactly what he was. As his transport ship approached Valetha Prime, Dongwook saw the planet through the window. It looked like a giant jewel floating in space. The surface was covered in crystal cities that caught the light from their sun and threw it back in brilliant colors. Soon he would meet Princess Velnara. Soon he would learn what the truth-revealing ceremony really meant. Soon he would find out if a human and a Valethian could really make a marriage work. But right now, all he could do was hope he wouldn't fail everyone who was counting on him. The Crystal Cathedral was the most beautiful building Dongwook had ever seen. It rose from the surface of Valetha Prime like a mountain made of pure light. The walls were transparent, but they caught sunlight and split it into rainbow colors that danced across everything. Hundreds of beings from different species filled the massive space. Dongwook recognized some of them from his diplomatic training. There were tall blue Zephyrians with their flowing robes, short furry Corellians who chattered constantly in their high voices. Even a few mechanoids, the robot-like beings who rarely left their home systems. All of them had come to watch a human marry a Valethian princess. Dongwook stood at the altar wearing his best dress uniform. The Valethian priests around him were enormous. Each one was over 7 feet tall and covered in crystal armor that looked like it had grown from their bodies. They spoke in deep musical voices that echoed through the cathedral. Ambassador Mi Young stood behind him as his witness. She had coached him on Valethian wedding customs during the flight to the planet. "Don't touch the princess unless she touches you first," she had warned. "Don't look directly at the emperor, and whatever you do, don't show fear. Valethians respect courage above everything else." Dongwook tried not to show fear, but his hands were shaking. Music began to play. It sounded like wind chimes mixed with thunder. The audience stood up and turned toward the back of the cathedral. Dongwook turned too. Princess Velnara was walking down the aisle. She wore traditional Valethian ceremonial armor that covered her completely. The armor was white crystal that seemed to glow from within. Her face was hidden behind a veil that sparkled like stars. She moved carefully, as if the armor was very heavy. Dongwook watched her walk toward him. Even though he couldn't see her face, he noticed things. She was shorter than most Valethians he had met. When the crowd cheered, she flinched slightly, as if loud sounds hurt her. Her hands trembled just a little when she lifted her arms to adjust her veil. Most interesting of all, she seemed to be counting her steps. Her head moved in a small, precise pattern, like she was measuring the distance to the altar. When she reached him, Princess Velnara stopped. The priest began speaking, in ancient Valethian. Dongwook had learned enough of the language to understand some words. Honor, strength, alliance, unity. Then the priest switched to the common galactic language that most species used for trade and diplomacy. "Princess Velnara of the Crystal, "Throne, do you accept this human as your bondmate in the sight of the Starfather?" "I do," she said. Her voice was beautiful. Even filtered through the translator device on her armor, it sounded like music. Dongwook felt some of his fear fade away. At least her voice was kind. The priest turned to him. "Park Dongwook of the Human Colonial Federation. Do you accept this princess as your bondmate in the sight of the Starfather?" "I do," Dongwook said. His voice cracked a little, but he got the words out. The ceremony continued for another hour. They exchanged rings made of Valethian crystal and human titanium. They drank from a shared cup that contained something that tasted like liquid starlight. Through it all, Princess Velnara never removed her veil. When the public ceremony ended, the crowd cheered. Representatives from different species came forward to offer congratulations. Emperor Thainvor, a massive Valethian who looked like he was carved from black crystal, nodded at Dongwook. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either. "The first part is done," Mi-young whispered to him. "Now comes the hard part." Dongwook was escorted to the Palace of Echoing Stars. The building was even more impressive than the cathedral. It seemed to be carved from one enormous crystal that had been hollowed out and shaped into rooms and corridors. Every surface caught light and threw it back in different colors. The Valethian guards who led him through the palace were polite but distant. They wore armor that looked like it was made of metal and gems. Their weapons hummed with energy that made Dongwook's skin tingle. "The princess will meet you in her private chambers," one guard said. "The truth-revealing ceremony will begin at sunset. Until then, you may rest and prepare yourself." They left him in a room that was bigger than his entire apartment back on. The space station. The walls were crystal, but they were somehow private. He couldn't see through them, but light still passed through in soft-colored patterns. Dongwook sat on what he thought was a chair. It was made of crystal, too, but it was surprisingly comfortable. He tried to calm his nerves by studying the room's design. His engineering mind automatically began analyzing how the crystal had been shaped and what kind of technology made it work. The room was designed for someone who couldn't see well in bright light. The glowing panels could be dimmed or brightened by touching them. The furniture had smooth edges that wouldn't hurt someone who bumped into them. Even the floor had subtle texture patterns that could guide footsteps. That was strange. Valethians were supposed to have excellent vision. Why would the princess's room be designed for someone who had trouble seeing? As the sun began to set outside, a soft chime sounded in the room. Dongwook stood up and straightened his uniform. Whatever the truth-revealing ceremony was, it was about to begin. A different guard appeared at the door. "The princess is ready," he said. Dongwook followed him, through more crystal corridors. They stopped at a door that was covered in intricate carvings. The guard gestured for him to enter alone. "Good luck, human," the guard said quietly. "You will need it." Dongwook opened the door and stepped inside. The room beyond was softly lit by crystals that gave off gentle, warm light. It was clearly a private space filled with personal belongings. He saw books written in Valethian script, musical instruments that looked like crystal harps, and what appeared to be scientific equipment. Princess Velnara stood in the center of the room. She was still wearing her ceremonial armor, but she had removed her veil. For the first time, Dongwook could see part of her face. What he saw surprised him. Her eyes were closed, and she was listening intently to something he couldn't hear. Her head was tilted slightly to one side, and her breathing was very controlled and careful. "You may sit," she said without opening her eyes. "The ceremony will begin when you are ready." Dongwook sat down on a crystal bench near the wall. "I'm ready," he said. Princess Velnara nodded. Then she began to remove her armor. "In the truth-revealing," she said, "we must show ourselves as we truly are. No hiding, no pretending, no lies between us. This is how Valethians have formed true bonds for thousands of years." As she spoke, she carefully removed each piece of crystal armor. With each piece that came off, Dongwook expected to see the typical Valethian form, tall, strong, covered in natural crystal formations that served as built-in armor. What he saw instead changed everything. He thought he knew about his new wife. Princess Velnara was not like other Valethians at all, and What he discovered about her would shock him more than anything he could have imagined. When Princess Velnara removed the last piece of her ceremonial armor, Dongwook forgot how to breathe. She was nothing like what he expected. Most Valathians were tall and imposing, with thick crystal formations covering their skin like natural armor. They looked like living statues made of gems and stone. They were built for war and conquest. Princess Velnara was delicate. Her crystal formations were incomplete, leaving large areas of her skin translucent and fragile-looking. Instead of the dark, strong crystals that covered other Valethians, hers were pale and clear, almost like glass. Light passed through them, creating soft rainbow patterns across her body, but most shocking of all were her eyes. They were completely cloudy like silver fog. She was blind. "Now you see the truth?" she said quietly. She turned toward him, but her eyes didn't focus on his face. "I am the shame of the royal family. The broken princess who should never have been born." Dongwook stared at her. In human society, she would have been considered beautiful in a unique way. Her translucent skin caught the light from the crystal walls and made her seem to glow. Her incomplete armor formations created elegant patterns across her arms and shoulders. Even her blindness gave her face a serene, peaceful expression. "You're not broken," he said. Princess Velnara laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You don't understand Valethian society. We value strength above all else. Physical strength, mental strength, the ability to fight and conquer. I have none of these things." She walked to a chair and sat down gracefully. Despite being blind, she moved through the room with perfect confidence. She knew exactly where everything was. "My father has been trying to find a use for me since I was born," she continued. "I cannot fight in battle. I cannot lead armies. I cannot even participate in the telepathic connections that bind Valethian families together. My mind is different." Dongwook stood up from his bench. "Different how?" "I cannot read thoughts like other Valethians," she said, "but I can sense other things, things that my people consider useless." She gestured for him to sit in a chair closer to her. When he did, she tilted her head and listened intently. "Your heart rate just increased," she said. "You're nervous, but not afraid of me. You're curious. Your breathing changed when you saw me without my armor, but not with disgust." "With surprise?" Dongwook felt his eyes widen. "How can you know all that?" "My other senses became stronger when I lost my sight," Princess Velnara explained. "I can hear your heartbeat. I can smell the changes in your body chemistry when your emotions shift. I can feel the tiny vibrations you make when you move, even when you think you're sitting still." She paused and tilted her head again. "Right now, you're leaning forward slightly. Your hands are resting on your knees. You're wearing a uniform made of synthetic fabric that was cleaned recently. You had coffee 3 hours ago and you're dehydrated." Dongwook looked down at his hands. They were exactly where she said they were. "That's incredible. My people don't think so," she said sadly. "They think it's a weak substitute for real telepathic abilities. My father arranged this marriage because it was the only way to make me useful to the Empire. A political alliance with humans, sealed by marrying off his defective daughter." Bitterness in her voice made Dongwook angry, not at her, but at the people who had made her feel worthless. "Their loss," he said. Princess Velnara turned her cloudy eyes toward him. "What do you mean?" Dongwook thought about how to explain. "I'm an engineer. I fix things and build things. The best tools are often the ones that work differently than you expect. A hammer is good for hitting nails, but sometimes you need something more precise, something that can detect tiny changes and work in ways a hammer can't." He stood up and walked around the room, studying the design. "This room is built for someone with your abilities. The acoustic properties are perfect for someone who listens carefully. The texture patterns on the floor create navigation paths. Even the lighting is designed to create consistent shadows and heat signatures." Princess Velnara looked surprised. "How did you notice all that?" "Because I pay attention to how things work," Dongwook said. "And whoever designed this room understood exactly how you experience the world. They didn't see your differences as weaknesses. They saw them as strengths to build around." For the first time since he'd met her, Princess Velnara smiled. It transformed her entire face, making her look younger and less sad. "You really think my abilities could be useful?" she asked. "I think they could be extraordinary," Dongwook said. "But that's not why I'm here." She tilted her head, listening to his heartbeat again. "Your emotional state just changed. You're less nervous now, more determined. Why?" Dongwook sat back down, closer to her this time. "Because this marriage was supposed to stop a war, but I just realized it might do something even more important." "What's that?" "It might help two people understand that being different doesn't mean being wrong." They talked through the night. Princess Velnara told him about her childhood, hidden away in the palace while her sisters learned to fight and lead armies. She described the loneliness of being the only member of her family who couldn't share thoughts telepathically. She explained how she had learned to navigate the world through sound and touch and smell. Dongwook told her about Earth, about human cities that were loud and chaotic and full of unexpected obstacles. He described his work as an engineer, solving problems by thinking about them from new angles. He explained how humans often succeeded by being too stubborn to accept that something was impossible. "We're both outcasts," Princess Velnara said, as the sun began to rise outside her crystal windows. "You're a human in a galaxy dominated by other species. I'm a Valethian who can't do what Valethians are supposed to do." "Maybe that's exactly what makes us useful," Dongwook said. As they continued talking, Dongwook began to realize something amazing. Princess Velnara's enhanced senses allowed her to perceive things that even the most advanced technology couldn't detect. She could sense when people were lying by detecting micro-changes in their body chemistry. She could navigate in complete darkness by feeling vibrations through the floor. She could identify different species by their unique biological signatures. "Has anyone ever tested the full range of what you can do?" he asked. Princess Velnara shook her head. "My family was too embarrassed by my condition to study it. They just wanted to hide me away." Dongwook felt excitement building in his chest. His engineering mind was already working on possibilities. "What if we changed that? What if we found ways to use your abilities that no one had ever thought of?" "You mean like building tools that work with my senses instead of against them?" "Exactly," Dongwook said. "Human technology is designed for human senses. Valethian technology is designed for Valethian telepathy. But your senses are unique. We could create entirely new types of interfaces and detection systems." Princess Velnara was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled again, and this time it reached her cloudy eyes. "I think," she said, "this marriage might be more interesting than either of us expected." As the morning light filled the crystal chamber, Dongwook realized that the truth-revealing ceremony had worked exactly as intended. He had seen his new wife as she truly was, and what he had found was far more extraordinary than anything he could have imagined. 3 weeks after the wedding, Dongwook and Princess Velnara had settled into a routine that surprised everyone in the palace. Every morning they walked through the crystal gardens together. Velnara would describe what she sensed through vibrations and air currents, while Dongwook described what he saw with his eyes. She taught him to feel the difference between healthy plants and sick ones by touching their leaves. He taught her human engineering principles by letting her examine small mechanical devices with her hands. The palace staff didn't know what to make of them. Most Valethian marriages were formal arrangements focused on duty and honor, but Dongwook and Velnara actually seemed to enjoy each other's company. "Your heart rate is elevated," Velnara said as they sat in her workshop on a Thursday morning. "But it's not stress, it's excitement. What are you thinking about?" Dongwook looked up from the small device he was building. "I finished the prototype." He had been working on a special interface device for 3 weeks. It was designed to translate Velnara's enhanced senses into information that could be used with Valethian computer systems. "May I examine it?" she asked. Dongwook placed the device in her hands. It was about the size of a small book made of human metal and Valethian crystal. Velnara's fingers moved across its surface, reading the texture and weight like others might read words on a page. "The crystal components will amplify my natural bioelectric sensitivity," she said. "The metal framework will process the information and translate it into standard data formats. This is brilliant design." "Try it on," Dongwook said. Velnara fitted the device over her left arm like a bracelet. Immediately, her expression changed. Her cloudy eyes widened with surprise. "I can sense everything in the room in a completely new way," she whispered. "The power sources in the walls, the electromagnetic fields from your tablet, even the tiny electrical activity in your nervous system." Dongwook grinned. "Now try connecting to the palace security network." Velnara touched a crystal panel on the wall. Data flowed across its surface, but now she could interpret it through the interface device. "Amazing," she breathed. "I can monitor every sensor in the palace, but more than that, I can detect inconsistencies in the data that the regular systems miss." Before Dongwook could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the palace. Captain Yun So-ra, the commander of the human security detail, burst into the workshop. She was a short, tough woman who had fought in 3 interstellar conflicts. "We have a problem," So-ra said. "Intelligence reports indicate that hegemony infiltrators may have penetrated the peace negotiations. They're trying to restart the war between humans and Valethians." The hegemony was a machine intelligence that wanted to eliminate all organic life. They had been quiet for months, but everyone knew they were planning something. Dongwook stood up. "What kind of infiltrators?" "Synthetic agents," So-ra said. "They look exactly like members of different species, but they're actually advanced robots controlled by hegemony artificial intelligence. Our scanners can't tell the difference." Velnara was still connected to the palace security systems through her interface device. "When is the next diplomatic meeting?" she asked. "Tonight," So-ra said. "Representatives from 12 species will be here to finalize the Human-Valethian Alliance Treaty." Velnara stood up suddenly. "We need to go to the meeting hall. Now." "Why?" Dongwook asked. "Because I can sense something wrong with the biosignatures of 3 delegates who arrived this morning," Velnara said. "Their electromagnetic patterns don't match any known organic species." So-ra looked confused. "Our security scans showed nothing unusual." "Your security scans look for weapons and known threats," Velnara explained. "I can sense the actual biological processes, heartbeat patterns, neural activity, cellular electrical fields. The 3 delegates who arrived this morning have none of these things." Dongwook felt his pulse quicken. "You mean they're synthetic?" "Almost certainly," Velnara said. They rushed to the main hall where the diplomatic meeting was being prepared. Dozens of beings from different species were already gathered, discussing the final details of the alliance treaty. Dongwook scanned the crowd, looking for anything suspicious. Everything looked normal to his eyes. But Velnara, using her enhanced senses and the interface device, was detecting things no one else could see. "There," she whispered, pointing toward a group of delegates near the main table. The Carillion delegate, the Zephyrian trade representative, and the human economic advisor from the outer colonies. All 3 have identical electromagnetic signatures. No organic being should have exactly the same bioelectric pattern as another. So-ra looked where Velnara was pointing. "They look completely normal to me." "That's the point," Dongwook said. "Hegemony technology is designed to fool standard detection methods." Emperor Thanevor was approaching the podium to begin the formal ceremony. If the hegemony agents were planning to disrupt the alliance, they would act soon. "We need proof," So-ra said. "I can't arrest diplomatic representatives based on sensor readings that our own equipment can't confirm." Dongwook looked at Velnara. "Can you get close enough to be absolutely certain?" "Yes," she said, "but it will be dangerous. If they realize I can detect them, they might attack." "I'll be with you," Dongwook said. They moved through the crowd, toward the suspected infiltrators. Velnara kept her interface device active, monitoring the electromagnetic signatures of everyone around them. As they got closer to the 3 suspicious delegates, Velnara suddenly grabbed Dongwook's arm. "They're not just synthetic," she whispered urgently. "They're armed. Each one is carrying some kind of energy weapon built into their artificial bodies, and they're coordinating with each other through wireless signals." Before Dongwook could respond, one of the synthetic agents turned toward them. Its eyes, which had looked perfectly normal from a distance, now showed a cold, mechanical intelligence. "The human and the defective princess have discovered us," it said in a voice that had lost all pretense of being organic. "Initiate termination protocol." The 3 hegemony agents moved with inhuman speed and precision. Energy weapons emerged. from their artificial bodies, targeting Emperor Thanevor and the other key leaders. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated what a human engineer and a Valethian princess with unique abilities could accomplish when they worked together. Dongwook grabbed a crystal resonance device from a nearby table and modified its frequency settings with quick, practiced movements. Velnara used her interface to hack into the palace's defensive systems, activating energy shields around the most important delegates. "Everyone get down!" Sora shouted, drawing her weapon. The hall erupted into chaos as the hegemony agents opened fire. But their perfect plan was falling apart because they had encountered something they hadn't prepared for: human adaptability combined with abilities they didn't understand. And this was only the beginning of what Dongwook and Velnara could accomplish together. 6 months later, Dongwook stood on the bridge of the combined human Valethian flagship Star Unity. Through the view screen, he could see the largest hegemony fleet anyone had ever encountered. Thousands of mechanical ships stretched across space, like a dark metal cloud. "Analysis complete," Velnara said from her position at the sensor station. "The hegemony formation has a critical weakness in Sector 7 Alpha. There's a gap in their defensive pattern that their AI command structure can't see because it's based on organic tactical thinking." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. "How certain are you, Princess?" Velnara's enhanced senses, amplified by the advanced interface systems that Dongwook had built, could detect patterns that even the most sophisticated computer analysis missed. Over the past months, she had become the Alliance's most valuable intelligence asset. 97% certain, she replied. "But the window of opportunity will only last 14 minutes once we begin the attack." Dongwook looked at the tactical display. "I can modify our torpedo guidance systems to exploit that weakness, but I'll need precise targeting data updated in real time." Emperor Thanevor, commanding the Valethian forces, spoke through the communication link. "The fate of both our species rests on this battle. Are you confident in your analysis, daughter?" It still surprised Dongwook to hear the Emperor call Velnara daughter with pride instead of shame. After she had saved the diplomatic conference by detecting the hegemony infiltrators, Valethian society had begun to see her abilities as gifts rather than defects. "I am confident, Father," Velnara said. "Dongwook's modifications to our sensor arrays allow me to detect quantum fluctuations in their shield harmonics. The hegemony AI is powerful, but it thinks in purely logical patterns. It can't account for the intuitive leaps that organic minds make." Dongwook felt a surge of pride. Over the past months, he and Velnara had revolutionized how both species approached technology and strategy. Her unique perceptual abilities, combined with his engineering innovation, had created entirely new ways of understanding and manipulating the world around them. But more than that, they had fallen in love. It hadn't happened all at once. It had grown slowly, built on respect and understanding and the joy of discovering what they could accomplish together. Where other human Valethian marriages had failed because of